Yate, good evening. That's hello in Navajo for all of you who might not understand that. I'd also like to say hola, because I'm also from New Mexico. I am really proud and glad to be here tonight. It's a great honor to be featured this evening, but I wanted to tell you a little bit more about myself. You've read a little bit of my bio, you heard the wonderful introduction, but on the Navajo Nation, as I learned from my father, who's a leader within Navajo, we don't just allow anyone to get up on a stage. We have to elaborate a little bit more on our background, on who we are and what we do, and why I was allowed and honored to be here with you this evening. Well, I grew up on the Navajo Nation, but part of that was growing up in a border town of Gallup, New Mexico. And by the way, that's the same hometown as the president of SACNAS, Dr. Gabriel. Wonderful that two people from Gallup, New Mexico are part of this wonderful organization. I'm very proud of that, and I'm glad to understand that there's such diversity that's on the national forefront in organizations such as SACNAS. My dad, who was a tribal leader for over 30 years, and my mom, who was an Indian Health Service nurse, taught me how to become a great leader. One of the biggest things they taught me was how to listen, and I've been listening since I've been here at SACNAS. So I'm very proud that I was asked to be a part of this meeting. But you'll see on one of the slides that there's only two in my family, my sister and myself. Growing up in the Church Rock area in Gallup, every Saturday and Sunday we were out on the reservation, my dad as a council member attending meetings, and my sister and I running around the chapter community house. My grandma would let us herd sheep, and I'm very proud to let you know that I didn't lose any sheep whatsoever. I kept everybody intact. And part of it, I wanted to be acknowledging that my aunt is here with this evening, but I'd also like to show you the next slide that has my extended family. And knowing that my father is featured in these pictures, and you'll see a little bit of my home community of Church Rock, New Mexico, I'm very proud of that fact. And you'll see what is my hope for my own family is my niece and nephew that are also pictured. I'd also like for you to see a little bit of my extended family. So with American Indians, we tend to have large families, as many of you might have, and this is a part of my extended family that you're seeing here. I'm very proud to have part of that family, understand what it's like for me to do what I do, and I'm very grateful that they allow me to miss some of our family functions to do my particular job. But let me go on a little bit further. So it wasn't easy growing up in Gallup as far as where I grew up in a class of high school students of only 42 in my graduating high school. I thought that was the way the world was. Very naive. I thought that the world was mostly brown-skinned, brown-eyed people. I learned the hard way that's not the case. I made a wonderful mistake. So I admit that over all the time that I reflected on my life, that I followed my best friend from high school who was 6 foot tall, blonde-eyed, blue-eyed girl, and I thought that we were just alike, and that when we went to college we would do well as both engineering majors. But yet I found all about culture shock, learning about isolation, being the only American Indian on that college campus where I chose to go to school for only 1 semester. That was enough for me. And what was hard is being able to admit that I chose wrong and I needed to start over. Very humbling to come back to your hometown and start again, but I'm very glad that I did. I was able to go to my community college in Gallup. I took every class at the University of New Mexico's Gallup campus, and I'm very proud of that campus today. They taught me well. They taught me about what the community needed, and that I was very needed as an engineer to be able to practice what I was learning. I then transferred to the main campus at the University of New Mexico. And those of you in an academic career, or maybe just working through your career right now, please remember your alma maters, because once you graduate and you go into the work world, we would like to tap you in your talent, also maybe teach you to be a philanthropist and give back to these institutions, and I'm very proud of that, the University of New Mexico. And I try to help out that university whenever I get a chance to do that. Part of learning that there's a home that you have is the next stage of leaving that home, and my wonderful study group that helped me get through college. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have my 2 best friends, my compadres, my amigos, Tessa and my good friend Phil. Our study group was very close to each other, but when I went to graduate school at Stanford University, I didn't have my pals to help me out, and it was a very tough situation. So going on a fellowship that was given to me from the GEN Consortium, I was one of Dr. Howard Adams' kids. And those of you who knew Dr. Howard Adams, I was very proud to be called one of Howard's kids. Part of that is the wonderful fellowship where I didn't have to pay for my Stanford education and to be able to have that network of support. Of course, I was heavily involved with ACES, and ACES gave me any leadership opportunity I wanted, and so I took every one that I had a chance to take on as a female leader. But my first semester at Stanford, it was on the quarter system, about this time of year, I lived through an earthquake. So there was the World Series that was going on. Everybody in the national venue was watching this earthquake, and I was living it, studying structural engineering to become an earthquake engineer. I had to think a little bit deep into the soul of who I am. How would I be able to overcome having that responsibility? Knowing that earthquakes can do a lot of damage and possibly kill people, I had to really go back on my nature of learning from the indigenous studies that were taught to me as a young Navajo to say that I cannot control Mother Nature, but I am to work with it. And I also needed to know the best that I could and to learn and study as hard as I could. And that's when I was able to take on the studies and continue on with Stanford, because one of the choices I could have made is to stop and go back home and have a very good life, very simple, straightforward life, but I chose to go on the hard path and study a very tough subject. So part of it is knowing in what you've done, the mistakes that you've made, but then in retrospect, they've been avenues that can help you and make you stronger, and I'm very proud of that fact. So today, my job, you heard a little bit about what I have been able to do, but the way I like to describe it in very simple terms is I'm trying to save the planet. And when I do that, I'm going to take on the next piece, and that would be working on world peace. And people think that's funny, but that's actually my job, is to try to help and save the planet. I've been actually able to work with tribes on renewable energy development. I've been able to create an internship program where you see some of my interns pictured. I've been able to do that for 13, going on 14 years this year, where I'm grooming Native American engineers and scientists on how they can take on the work that I'm doing right now. And little by little, these students are becoming leaders in their own right. And I'm very grateful 2 of my interns are here with me tonight at the SACNAS conference. So I am very grateful to be able to take people who want to do and take on great goals like changing and saving the planet. And I'm not really facetious that that's a big goal, and we're going to accomplish that. And so after we do that, we must take on other goals. And like I said, the next one is world peace. So you think those might be simple, but they're not. And what I wanted to encourage you is to learn how to figure out what that vision might be for yourself. I've created a vision for what I want to do. I hope you are able to learn from those visions. I had some great role models when I grew up. I got to have a mentor who was the first Native American woman in the United States. Mary Ross, a Cherokee engineer, really was a true rocket scientist. She worked for Lockheed, and she actually worked on some rocket science and was able to do that for her career. I was mentored by her until she died at age 99. How lucky am I to have wonderful models like that? I was able to also be mentored by Dr. Henrietta Mann. She is Cheyenne, and she taught me how to be grounded in who I am, remember who I am, remember my family, remember those teachings that has kept me strong over time, and help you overcome when those times are tough. I'm grateful for these wonderful American Indian women who've held me strong. But I'd also like to teach you about visioning. My friend Don Coyas, who helps Indigenous nations now, he said you have got to have a very clear picture in your head of what you want to do for the future. And so he helped me picture my first day of my first job, and I chose to work at Lawrence Livermore Labs. And I knew what that looked like, what the sky looked like, what the temperature felt like. I would have my lunch with me. I'd be walking into the building. Now, how did I create that strong vision? I went on a field visit to Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. And I said, where do the structural or civil engineers work? And they showed me. And I had that clear picture in my head. And I made it so real that even that lunch that I made, I could taste it. I knew what it felt like. The clearer you can have that kind of vision, the stronger you can be, because times are going to be tough. If anybody says that taking on a STEM career and taking on big challenges is easy, they're fooling you. So let's not be foolish. It is going to be very hard, and you're going to need a lot of role models, and I'm hoping you go and seek those out. Another role model of mine said, I understand you have a vision or goal to be a leader in the ACES organization, counterpart to SACNAS. I said, yes, I want to be the executive director of that organization. He says, I think you need to think bigger. And lo and behold, that was a little bit more than I could handle at the time. He says, you should become the president of the University of New Mexico, your alma mater. I thought, I don't know, that's a little bit too big. So part of that was just letting that sit with myself. Learning that I could be the executive director of ACES, I did do that. I loved that job, but I also had to learn when to let that go. And I love what I do now with renewable energy development. But just remember that vision I told you about. Keep those things to yourself, because I let a few people know, yeah, my mentor said I should become the president of the University of New Mexico, and I know that's probably not going to be what's going to happen. And if I didn't choose my mentors well, they would have had a lot of negativity. That's too big of a goal, that's impossible, and I might have started to listen to them. But lo and behold, one day, the governor of New Mexico said, I would love for you to become a regent or a trustee of the University of New Mexico. And that was an appointment that only the governor can make. And I said, I'd love to do that. What does that all entail? He says, well, really, you're going to be the boss of the president of the University of New Mexico. Well, lo and behold, there was another dream that somebody gave to me and I thought I would never do. And I actually was a level above what that dream was that he said to me. So never say never. Keep those dreams alive, and be sure and understand what that means to be able to find those mentors and people that are able to keep those goals that you have tight within you and that you trust, because your dreams and goals are very important, and I want you to have as much positive reinforcement as you can. So organizations like SACNAS, ACES, I mentioned a GEM fellowship. I also had a scholarship from the National Action Council for Minority Engineering. They supported me with scholarships. I received a wonderful award from them. All of these things are wonderful because part of it is they want you to help where you've been helped, to give back, to be able to understand those organizations. And so recently I am very honored, and I saw my boss last night, two of my bosses. One was the Secretary of Energy, Dr. Moniz, that's one boss, and then my other immediate boss, Dr. Chris Deschitny, who's a part of the Office of Indian Energy. And they were both here last night. They were at SACNAS. So it's wonderful. So I don't have to do this on the side. My bosses are in agreement with what I do. And now I'm a part of an initiative called the DOE Minorities in Energy. So part of that is, it's wonderful. I get to do this as a part of my day job now. And I think the other piece to that is encouraging others who know what they want to do and to be able to hear those dreams in venues like this. So I'm very grateful. I was able to be a judge yesterday, and I was able to see some of those students firsthand in the research that they were doing, hearing what they had to say, the research that they're doing, but encouraging them that they were on their right path. The other, it gave me a little bit of peace of mind, because part of it, at where I'm in my career, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next. I don't know what those big dreams are, but part of it is saying, I'm working on saving the planet. We're not there yet. So having student interns that are coming behind me to be able to do that is wonderful. I'm growing part of that. How do you create that so that I can then do something different? So part of that for me to you is to understand that there's ways to think and be encouraged that are part of SACNAS and organizations that would love to help you. So I'm going to remind you of a few things that I think are great. In perspective, sometimes the mistakes that you make early on and you think are hard and you should have done something differently, learn from those. Be able to admit where you might have made mistakes and did something different. But I learned a lot from that. The others, get those mentors and coaches, people who will hold those visions and dreams close to where you want to be and to be able to encourage you so that you'll be able to be successful with what you like to do. And last, I'm hoping that in the careers you choose, I'm hoping you learn to have fun, because I'm having a lot of fun in what I'm doing. I'm very grateful where I'm able to do certain things, and I think part of it is admitting how unique I am. And part of that is knowing the numbers. So for American Indians, you got to know you're the smallest number of all the minorities. And I am one of 13,000 US engineers in the United States. And why is that? Because I'm both a female and a Native American in engineering and doing research. That I don't think is a small number. I think that is a uniqueness. I love that. I embrace that. I accept that. And then I take on that challenge to give to you. We're not a part of those small numbers. We're a part of all that we can do, I think, for what we can give back to organizations such as SACNAS. And I really do appreciate the honor you've been giving me tonight. Thank you very much.